camaraderie that characterises so much sport in South Africa is well captured in that recording made by our rugby Springboks in New Zealand in 1965. The sporting years between 1950 and 1975 were filled with achievement. In dozens of different fields, our sportsmen and sportswomen won international fame. They broke world records, won Empire and Olympic medals, played great rugby and cricket, took world boxing titles, any number of golf championships, the Federation Cup and the Davis Cup. But even more important than the victories were the friends they made throughout the world. South African sportsmen have always been great ambassadors, and as long as the true sporting spirit, as exemplified on this record, is maintained, South Africa can never be isolated from international competition. This is not a comprehensive review of 25 years of sport. So many memorable moments were never recorded at all. This is a scrapbook, compiled from available recordings, and with an eye not so much on statistical detail as on human drama. We've only taken a handful of sports, but enough, we believe, to evoke rich memories in many thousands of sports lovers, and perhaps even to inspire them to emulate these achievements in years to come. Let's begin with rugby in 1950, when Transvaal took the Currie Cup.
Just on the touchline, and Jimmy Kotzek is ready to throw in. Transvaal right wing, Transvaal still playing from our right to our left. Ball knocked back to Bolivar, Val to Fry, Fry to Visser, Visser to Boys, who knocks it on. Right in front of his own person, is kicked forward by Des Sinclair. Sinclair picks it up and gives out a lovely pass. And Van Staden's over for a try. Van Staden's over for a try. A bad knock on then by Boys in front of his own post. Snapped up by Des Sinclair, Transvaal centre. Gives the ball out to Fancy Van Staden, the Transvaal left wing, who goes over at the corner, runs in about 10 yards.
The following season, the Springboks under Basil Kenyon toured the British Isles and France. At Murrayfield on the 24th of November, they scored their biggest win in an international, 44-0 against Scotland. They got 9 tries with an incredible display of teamwork.
Scotland's ball, Hart throws it in, halfway down the line out. It goes straight down on the ground. The Scotland forwards go ahead with their feet dribbling. There's Elliott there, and Kinninworth as well. They're 10 yards from the line, and Buchler has to go down on the ball and hurls himself into touch with it. A fine and typical rush by 2 back row forwards there, Elliott and Kinninworth, and Scotland are 5 yards from the line. A line out. It's knocked back to Dorwood. He's smothered by quick breaking South African forwards. They dribble, led by Stephen Fry, and Delport is there. Burrell goes down on it. He's scragged by half the South African pack, and the ball from a loose ball comes out to South Africa, out to Bravis, going a three-quarter line, coming out to the right wing. A baddish pass. Lathern passes it inside, coming out on the wing, and there's Johnston come right over to this side. Now to Van Wyk. It's bewildering, this. Every South African trying to handle it, but they're getting too clever with it almost. Koch has it now. He's trying to barge his way through, but the Scottish defence is in position. Dorwood has it, a long pass out to Scott. He's tackled in midfield. Lathern is there. Tackled by Bravis there, picked up by Van Score out to Johnston on the left wing, tackled by Hart, inside to Lathern. Lathern cross kicks, dangerous this for Scotland, 2 or 3 South Africans there, and it's Chris Koch going after it, and I think he's scored. Has the referee allowed it? Yes. The prelude to a wonderful bit of teamwork by the South African team.
Did you recognise the voice of Rex Austin? In 1950, the British Empire Games were held in New Zealand, and our boxers, swimmers and athletes in particular did well, as we are reminded now by Winston McCarthy.
Hello, South Africa. You should indeed be proud that you sent such fine representatives to the British Empire Games in New Zealand. In your boxing, you won through Jan van Rensburg, who right throughout his bout carried that smile which is so deceptive to his opponent. And by his tenacity, that same tenacity that characterizes your football, Jan van Rensburg won through in the final to defeat Albert Pereira of Ceylon. He got a great hand from this New Zealand audience. But he got no greater a hand than did Schalk Wyk when he defeated a New Zealander, Jim Beale, in the middleweight class. Marcus Temple, he was very popular indeed, and I think that the crowd would have liked to see such a clean-cut youngster win a title. Now, in the swimming, you have a brilliant youngster whom we saw at Border. Border, of course, is well known to New Zealanders. I think there the All Blacks had a loss and a draw. Joan Harrison, aged 14, won the British Empire 440 yards in record time. She too got a wonderful hand from the spectators, even though those spectators are still the same people who had to listen to the rugby defeats of 1949. In Joan Harrison, at 14 years of age, you have a girl who can break any record that the Empire or the world now holds. Graham Johnson fooled everybody in the 1650 metres, as he did when he was second in the 440 yards. But perhaps no one got a greater call among the men than did Jackie Veed when he beat the rest of the Empire in record time in the 110 yards backstroke. Jackie Veed of South Africa will be a name to be remembered in the Empire. And now, South Africa, I would like to say to you, Alice van die Beste, that's it.
And how good it is, after all these years, to hear rugby commentator Winston McCarthy singing the praises of our 14-year-olds. And of course we mustn't forget Sid Late, who ran second in the marathon. Let's turn to boxing in the 50s. Reg Haswell has been a manager, matchmaker and promoter for more years than he cares to remember.
Well, of course, 1950 was the year that Vicky Tauil won the first world title for South Africa. And apart from that, the early 50s was probably the best period in the whole history of our boxing. At that time, we had some very fine fighters. Apart from Vicky Tauil and Willie Tauil, there was Eddie Thomas, there was Mike Holt, there was Jimmy Elliott, there was Benny Nieuwenhuizen, Smarlov van Rensburg, Dennis Adams, Jake Tooley, Jolting Mazeko, George Angelo. Just compare those boxers of the 50s with those of today. Quite frankly, I don't think our current boxers can compare.
Vic Tauil riding those punches and giving as much as he's getting and giving a lot more into the bargain. Again, a left and a right and a left and a right from Vic Tauil to Ortiz. And Ortiz comes after him. The punches aren't hurting, but they're doing a lot of damage in the way of scoring. And if Vic Tauil hasn't got the decision in this fight on points, then I'll eat my hat, which is a straw one I've got on at the moment. And there goes that game of sparring. They're dancing up and down in the centre of the ring, and again they're clinching in the centre of the ring, and again that wonderful exchange from Vic Tauil, left right to the body, left right to the head to Ortiz. And Ortiz comes back, but he can't do very much about it. He's missing badly. Vicky's going after him instinctively. I think Vicky is the more tired of the two, but my word, he's got the born instincts of a fighter. Ortiz is viciously fighting back now, but Ortiz is on the ropes. Ortiz is on the ropes, and Vicky's going after him. Vicky's fighting him, and they're both fighting each other on the ropes. Ortiz is still on the ropes, but he can't do a thing. Vicky is barraging him bombarding him with these blows. But if only they could tell, But Ortiz is just holding him off now, and Vicky brought a lovely right cross there onto the side of Ortiz's head, which landed and told. And Ortiz comes back instinctively and lands a couple of blows to Vicky's body. But there's no question about this is the decision in this fight now. And as Ortiz manages to land one, Ortiz is going through the ropes now, but he comes back almost reflexively into the centre of the ring. And again Ortiz is on the ropes. But now, that's the end of the fight. That's the end of round 15, the end of the fight. And now we'll wait for the verdict in this wonderfully thrilling fight for the Bantamweight Championship of the world between Manuel Ortiz, the title holder from the USA, and his young challenger from South Africa, Vic Tauil. And until that verdict comes through, over to Bill Pritchard.
Well, I think that we should have given Tauil 8 of those rounds. There'll be 5 to Ortiz, and the remaining 2 will be draws, I think, anyway. But of the 2, Vic Tauil certainly looks the more puffed and the more done down and more done out. But I think he's going to win all the same. But Ortiz was definitely out for the kill, and as you can hear by the shouting of the crowd, the winner is over to Bob Griffiths for him.
Well, I don't know. I didn't hear the announcement of the verdict at all, but judging by the shrieks from this crowd here, it can be one person and one person only. The 23-year-old woodcarver from Benoni, Victor Tauil of South Africa, the new bantamweight champion of the whole world.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and the new bantamweight champion of the world, Vic Tauil.
The commentator was Bob Griffiths. Our first world champion lost his title a couple of years later to Jimmy Carruthers, but that was a wonderful night in our boxing history. Throughout the 25 years under review, South African golfers have been wonderful ambassadors, none more so than Bobby Locke and Gary Player. They also beat the toughest opposition in the world. Here's Bobby talking to Henry Longhurst after he'd won his second British Open.
Well, Henry, it's really wonderful to be Open champion for the second time. Yesterday, in my round of 72, I took 6 at the fifth, the bogey 3, and it was just a case of say, well, forget it, and quick. And I managed to finish in that score of 72, which really was a fighting round.
Well, tell me, interrupting, wouldn't you say that out of these 4 scores, probably 72, the worst on paper, was in fact the best in golf?
Well, I think so, because Troon, as you know, is such a testing course that there's so much trouble if you leave the fairway apart from bunkers. And I thought, well, there were so many South Africans here pulling for me to win that I just felt that I had to get in. And here you see the result this evening at 279.
Well, now tell us another thing which will appeal to golfers all over the world. I believe that you drove with your brassy all the way round.
Yes, Henry. Right? I didn't use a driver once because the fairways here are very narrow. But I must say that when I was here a week before the championship practicing, we just had gales all the time, and the weather during the tournament was just perfect.
Well, this is very much like old times, that we should be sitting here talking to each other, asking you what it feels like to be Open champion.
Well, you know, Henry, Dad wrote me a letter last year when I won the championship for the first time, and he was charmed with your conversation last year. And I would like to say to my wife, to Mum and Dad, that I can't tell you how proud I am to bring the cup back to the 3 of you for the second time.
There have been many changes in soccer in South Africa over the past quarter century, and no one is better able to put the game into perspective for us than Vivian Granger.
There were 2 very important happenings, Kim. The first was in 1959 when the National Football League started. It created a great deal of interest in the country. And then, of course, in 1964, when we were suspended by FIFA for the second time, but our suspension has lasted ever since and been a very severe blow to us. I would say that in the 1950s, our amateur football was of a high standard. In fact, in 1952, Newcastle United came out here as the FA Cup winners, and they were one of the very celebrated teams in Britain. And they got a hiding from South Africa at the Ron Stadium. That was a really memorable occasion because it was the first time that a South African amateur side had ever beaten a professional team from abroad in a test match. There were great scenes there of jubilation, and I can remember how well chaps like Johnny Claessens played, and Harold Payton and Charlie Hurley. They did really magnificently. And it was a great milestone in our soccer.
And now the ball's gone up to Tidrobledo. Robledo inside to Crow, but Crow doesn't get it. Ball nicely intercepted by Payton, the South African captain. Hit it out by Bobby Cowell again up the middle of the field. Goes over Montgomery's head. Met by Tidrobledo again. Robledo up to Joe Harvey just inside the Newcastle half. And it's Hasty standing, lying on the ground. It goes to Jackie Milburn. Milburn's making tracks for goal. He only has Miller to beat. But Lottie Mitchell comes across and takes the ball right off his feet. Well done, Lottie Mitchell. And it comes up to Billy Folkes. Folkes passes inside to Reg Davis. Davis looks like losing the ball to Miller now. He's come back again. And in the meantime, Hasty's lying on the ground, but the game goes on. It's got to go on too. And Harvey passes inside there to Bobby Mitchell, and he fires in a shot, and it's a goal. A goal to Newcastle United, scored by Mitchell. Scored by Mitchell. And the score is now 5-3. The crowd are booing because the game wasn't stopped when Hasty was injured. But the game went on, and Newcastle United are now only 2 goals down instead of being 3 goals down. The score, South Africa 5, Newcastle United 3.
25 years ago, Australia were the cricket champions of the world, especially after their decisive series against the West Indies in Australia in 1951-52. At that time, South Africa was a friendly foe, having lost every series in which they were involved since 1947. Then, under the firm guidance of Jack Cheetham, the tide turned. The Springboks in Australia in 1952-53 amazed the cricketing world by finishing with the best test record of any side visiting Australia since Jardine's team 20 years previously. Jack Cheetham recalls the thrilling finish to that drawn series.
if one looks at an Australian first innings total of 520, I don't think that many critics gave us much chance of winning that match. But, you know, our chaps felt by that time that we were just as good as our opponents, so we ended up with 435 in the first innings. And then we managed to bundle them out for 209 and were left with, I think, 296 to get to win. But you can imagine what it was like in that dressing room. There was Eddie Fuller, sitting, saying, we need 136, 135, 133, until we nearly did our nuts. And at long last, McLean went berserk. Or to put it really crudely, he went burlesque, because he murdered everything that came his way. What a wonderful innings. What a glorious end. And with our hearts in our mouth at every time he lifted that ball, but it came off. Roy always called me Pop because I looked after him in England in 1951 when he was a young member of the team. And I went up to him when he was going out to bat to wish him luck. And I said, good luck, boy. And he looked at me and he said, don't worry, Pop. I'll get him. And get him he did.
Get my glasses up and have a look at Lindsay Hassett as he comes in bowling. Didn't get a chance. Bowls now. Sure, McLean hits this one through the covers. It's for his runs. It's going through for four. Four through the covers. Hits the black patch on the fence there. There's a row of railings about 10 yards long which are black, mingled amongst the white that goes all the way round. 4 runs to McLean, 72, 293 for 4. 293 for 4 with McLean 72 and Keith 40. 100 partnership between these two boys, and don't forget Keith, his has been a big hand, and McLean has to fall back on defence to Hassett's third ball. The ball comes down the pitch, Hassett by a toe, flicks it up to the hand. He's thrown his field quite deep, only the single slip there, McLean, a short ball, and it's through, runs, past point. McLean has won this, and listen to this crowd. Listen to the crowd as Keith and McLean go in, their arms around each other's shoulders. 297 for 4. 297 for 4. McLean 76. Keith 40. The policeman thrown onto the ground, and everybody except your commentator and his scorer at his side are standing as the South Africans come in. Waiting at the gate is Ian Craig. Waits as the side comes in. Craig waits there. In come the 2 batsmen. Everybody's standing.
Did you recognise the measured, eloquent tones of Charles Fortune, allowing himself just a little more emotional reaction than usual? Jack Cheetham feels that the 1955 Springbok cricket side in England was one of the strongest South Africa ever put into the field. Adcock and Heine added hostility to the attack, Trevor Goddard made his international debut, and McGlew, McLean, Endine, Waite and Tayfield were at their peak. The England side had just regained the Ashes in Australia, and although illness forced Len Hutton to withdraw from the captaincy, they had talented batsmen like Peter May, Dennis Compton, Tom Graveney and Colin Cowdrey, and an awesome bowling lineup with Tyson, Statham, Truman, Laker, Locke, Wardle and Titmus.
We lost the first test by an innings, and the second by 72 runs. And then won the third by 3 wickets. That was the important one.
Tyson to Waite. Waite pushes the first ball to mid-on. Mayfield. Still those 4 runs wanted. South Africa 141 for 7. 1 run to Tayfield, 6 to Waite. Waite stands well aside, leans on his bat. Tyson, who is now bowling his what over? 14th over, has now reached his bowling mark and starts again. He comes in and he bowls to Waite. Waite pushes forward, fielded by Locke, who isn't more than 5 yards from him, 6 yards from him perhaps. At Silly Point, no run there. 4 more balls in the over. Then there will be an over from Locke, and then there will still be time for another over from Tyson, I feel, should those be necessary. And still, only those 4 runs wanted. They could come by byes, they could come by no balls, they could come by wides. It could come in singles. Plenty of time for anything, and anything can happen in a match like this. Here comes Tyson again. Complete silence on the ground. He comes up and he bows to Waite, and Waite has pushed that hard and high. No, it may not be 4 runs. It's being chased by Parkhurst. They run 2. They're running 3. It's crossed the boundary, and South Africa have won. With about 5 minutes or 6 to spare, the two batsmen congratulating one another. South Africa have won by 3 wickets, 145 for 7, Waite not out 10, and Tayfield not out 1. The crowd stands, and I'm not going to say any more for a moment. We'll let them applaud as the two batsmen walk in first.
Inspired by that great win, our cricketers took the 4th Test by 222 runs, and although the decider went to England by 92 runs, it was a series to remember. South Africa is proud of its racecourses, proud of its racehorses, and grateful for some of the splendid finishes we've enjoyed in our long racing history. Greyville, 1952.
They're taking the turn, flew drive very wide. Now into the straight is Penn and Weasel on the inside from Nornie's Idol. Right on the inside fence Superbus and Mowgli right in 4th place there. Towards the outside is down. Now 2 furlongs to go. And there's Mowgli slightly inside there from Penn and Weasel and Nornie's Idol. Down on the outside and inside fence is Superbus and very wide out Lloyd Louis. Now the crossing the same way and Mowgli's in front. He's taken over in front. Mowgli in front. He won it from there. Radington in 2nd place. And on the inside fence is Superbus. But Mowgli's won this race. Radington putting in a strong run. Mowgli and Radington together. These two are fighting it out. The 100 yards to go. And it's Mowgli and Radington. Terrific footing. Since Mowgli and Radington had terrific footing at the cut. Post, and it's got a post I give it to Mowgli from Radington, Chris Burton and Lloyd Louis.
That finish, described by Ernie Duffield, was so close that the judges called for 4 photo prints before awarding the race to Mowgli. What an incredible tussle we saw between the Springboks and the Lions in South Africa in the winter of '55. And not many commentators have been provided with a better finish to describe than Ian Balfour at Ellis Park.
We've now had 2 minutes of injury time, 2 minutes 25 seconds to be exact. And the British Isles lead by 23 points to 19. And the ball thrown in by Swart. A short thrown in. And South Africa win it. Out to Gentles, out to Elliott. Out to Van der Scape, who's coming to the line. Van der Scape passes back again to Van Vollenhoven. Van Vollenhoven carrying on the movement. Near the touchline. He's lost by Cecil Pedlo. 10 yards from the from the British Isles 25. Retief has the ball. Out to Beers. And Beers is over. Beers is over for a try. Beers has scored what will probably be the final try of the match. Terence Beers of Western Province. A lovely combined effort by the South Africans. And Beers has scored about 10 yards in from the touchline. And the score is 23 points to 22. Everything now depends on this kick. The British Isles are leading by 1 point. And this conversion counts 2 points. The referee's whistle must go for full time after this kick. And everybody, why, they're even telling me to shut up now. You've never seen such a scene. Everybody standing up and all waving and saying quiet, quiet, quiet. As if Van der Scape could hear us way out there. It's 23 points to 22 in favour of the British Lions. Steve de Villiers can hardly bear to watch this kick standing next to me. And the ball is placed. Van der Scape is up and kicked and it's missed. And this must be, yes, the final whistle. And the British Isles have beaten South Africa.
The British Isles won the 2nd Test at Newlands, but South Africa scored some fine tries.
It's the South African ball, so Tommy Gentles has the ball. He puts it in. It's coming back to him very slowly. He gives it out to Davy Ackerman, who's waiting for him. He gives it back, and he gives it out to Tom van Vollenhoven, who shakes off a tackle and is going right down. He's over there. He's 10 yards from the line. He's going through to score, and he's going to score right behind the post. Yes, he runs around the score right behind the post. A tremendous run by Tom van Vollenhoven, and Steve Fry, in his joy, comes up, puts his arms around him and literally kisses him. He's so pleased with his excellent piece of play on his part, and all the South Africans have now gathered around him, and they're clapping him on the back and lifting him up, and there Roy Driver is shaking him by the hand. A great try.
Pat Tebbert at Newlands in 1955. The series was shared 2-2. In the mid-50s, 3 great middle-distance runners dominated the international scene in Europe: Emil Zatopek, Vladimir Kutz and Chris Chataway. Shortly after a great challenge match in which Chataway beat Coutts over 3 miles in London in world record time, Chataway came to South Africa at the invitation of Johannesburg Harriers, and at Kent Park took on Roberts, Jennings, Barnard, Piers, Allen and O'Driscoll.
Now he has 300 yards to go. And there he goes, and Athol Jennings going after him. Athol Jennings is closing the gap, but not by very much. I don't think that Jennings could possibly do it. He's about 35 yards behind Chataway, but Jennings is running a magnificent race. So for that matter, of course, it's Chataway, but we expect it. Jennings is really putting in a magnificent run. I'm almost certain that he can't do it. And here's Jennings, they're starting lapping the people now as they come in. But Chataway in the straight, and Jennings putting in a truly magnificent finish, though. Jennings is only 20 yards behind, and here comes Chataway. And it's no South African record, but Chataway is the winner. It's Chataway first, Jennings 1, 2, 3, 4, about no more than 4 or 5 seconds behind, and here comes Jean Barnard.
We turn the page to 1956, back to Jack Cheetham and Rex Austin.
The return visit to this country by Peter May's MCC team was one eagerly looked forward to by all cricket lovers and by players as well, because after that 55 tour we were determined that we were able to hold them and perhaps beat them in this country. But although our hopes were high at the beginning of the tour, they were dashed by losing the first 2 tests in Johannesburg and Cape Town. And when we drew the third in Durban, everybody said, well, it looks as if we have another busted flush. But the 4th test in Johannesburg was a nail-biting operation. The game seesawed first one way and then the other. We led by 89 runs on the first innings and then collapsed in our second innings at bat. And altogether, we managed to clinch the deal by a mere 17 runs.
Total 213 for 9. And now the field has spread out quite a lot as Tayfield bowls to Statham, who plays a very good square cut. And a nice piece of fielding there on the run by cover point Duckworth. And Statham has got another single. That was a very good stroke. 18 to get. Tayfield to Loader. He pushes forward. No run. Fielded by cover pointed. And that was a good defensive stroke. 214 for 9. 18 to get. Tayfield to Loader. He's had a swing. He's put it in the air. It's going into the hands of Tayfield. He's caught it. The most extraordinary scene going on here, with spectators hugging and mobbing. I suppose it's Hugh Tayfield. It might well be Arthur Tayfield as well. It's Tayfield the bowler. He's being lifted up and being carried off the field. Someone's putting a Panama hat on his head. Well, he broke a record when he took all 8 wickets. He's now taken 9. And South Africa have won this match by 17 runs.
So to the decider in Port Elizabeth. Commentary this time by Ian Balfour.
When Reinfeldt, ever active, ever on the lookout, walks up to Tayfield and asks him what he wants with the field. McLean is being brought in from the scoreboard on the mid-wicket boundary. Not much, only a matter of about 5 yards. Otherwise, the field remains virtually the same. There's a forward short leg and a backward short leg. There's no slip. Tayfield to Loader. And Loader has a big hit, high into the country. McLean's under it. McLean has caught it over his head. And there are such scenes of wild enthusiasm. Tayfield has now broken the record for the number of wickets taken by a South African bowler in a test series. It's a replica of the Johannesburg test, the 4th test, with the crowd doing their best to raise Towie Tayfield and cheer him off the field. In cold figures, South Africa has won this test match by 58 runs.